Got the Zambian High Commissioner to South Africa, Mr. Muyeba Chikonde. Ambassador, thank you for your time. It is not often that we go and we say to ambassadors, hello, come into the studio and tell us what you do in terms of attracting investment into Zambia, but that's exactly what we're doing today. I would like you to outline what someone potentially who's watching this program and is thinking, Zambia is one of the fastest growing economies on the continent. What kind of things do I need to consider before I step in or even begin to try and investigate?
I think the first and foremost important aspect for us in Zambia has been what we are selling is the political stability. And also the fact that the micro fundamentals in terms of the fiscal policy and the monetary policy have been stable in the past 5 years. So we have got, we've registered growth in terms of over 5.6 to 6.5%, and we are targeting 7% over the past decade. So we are looking at all those factors, and we think that those factors are good enough. We have a climate which is very, very good for very friendly in terms of investment. So all those aspects, including that we have got very kind people, very, very welcoming.
I can attest to that, and I can also attest to the fact that it's probably one of the best weather systems you can find anywhere in the world, because the belt lies within Harare, and you know where Harare and me are one. Okay, so I want to understand, now you speak about the political stability, you also speak about the high growth rates that we have seen. Now, in terms of the Zambian government's attitude to private investment, what would you say are some of the key things that you have put in place to make sure that when people look at Zambia and maybe they look at Malawi and maybe they look at DRC, they will say, no, I want to go to Zambia?
We looked at the whole investment portfolio scenario in terms of, and the whole environment. And we looked at what is that is hindering direct investment. And we came up with what we call Zambia Development Agency, which is an agency. It's like a one-stop shop. Additionally, we are going to one-stop shop where we are reducing the licensing. We are also looking at an institution that will provide all the necessary information on investment in one shop. So we're also looking at establishing any company within 24 hours. So within the ZDA, there is a charter that has various, commitments that it has had with various investors. So
you're cutting down on the red tape in order
to make it easier?
We
are cutting down the red tape, and that's the idea. That's the idea, to cut down the red tape.
Now, we know that competition in Africa now is rife, because certainly when you look at countries like Rwanda, you look at countries like Mozambique, you look at your Tanzanias, these are all countries that are growing in excess of 7%, and they are very competitive indeed. Are there incentives in terms of tax, in terms of coverage of your initial capital costs and those kind of things that the Zambian government is looking at in trying to attract investors?
I think that is one of the major attractive items that we have on our investment packages. Those are incentives in terms of tax. The corporate tax, which is 0 to 35% in the first 5
0 to 35%?
Yes, in the first 5
How does one qualify for 0?
Well,
because I think that's where someone else will begin and say, I want to get 0.
No, 0 is when, the first 5 years, I think if I'm correct, you don't pay tax. And then we get into the second phase, where we are looking at the first 5 to 6, 7 years, and then the 8th and 9th year where you pay 75%. So it graduates. But most of these, like I say, you discuss them with Zambia Development Agency. They are also dependent on the investment in terms of the amount, and also the sector. Because it has to be a sector of preference for Zambia.
Is there a specific sector that you're targeting? Of course, when you talk Zambia, we talk copper, and you talk Zambia, of course, I have to say it, you talk the Victoria Falls. But are there other sectors that you're targeting that you want people to specifically come into because you want investment in there?
Mining has been our major strong, sector. But, it's straightforward with mining. So we are also looking at diversification, and that is a key now. And agriculture is a key sector. Infrastructure is a key sector, especially energy. We are also looking at IT. Those are some of the major sectors that we are looking at. Agriculture is key because you see the mining sector has been subjected to shocks because the currency doesn't stabilize quickly. etc., etc.
And prices are dependent,
on the global environment, yes. And so that's why we are targeting, agriculture as one of the major drivers of growth in the next 5 years to come.
Yeah. Now, you have been speaking to investors here in South Africa and trying to encourage them to go into Zambia, and you've been talking about one of the key pillars of that plan, which is the 6th National Development Plan. Just give us a sense of what's contained in that plan and what message it has for investors.
The 6th National Development Plan derives from the understanding that we have had sustained economic growth.
Right.
We now want to translate that economic growth into poverty reduction. So that is what the theme is. It's sustained growth towards poverty reduction and job creation.
Right.
So that is key.
Okay.
So what we're looking at also is in that job creation, you should understand that we're looking at also beneficiation.
Right.
So that is key. But also amongst the major thrust is the human development aspect.
Yeah.
So that is where we are looking at.
Okay.
And investment is directed towards that.
Yeah. Beneficiation is an interesting one. It's one I have heard, I think now for the last maybe couple of years, if not more, at fora such as the African Development Bank, where you actually have sessions which are targeted at this. And one of the issues people raise is that Africa's economies are small. If you want to beneficiate, you need to create the market, and you also need the skills, you need the capital, you need a whole host of other things that most African countries don't have. How would Zambia address those challenges in order to be able to drive people to beneficiate so that Zambia's copper just doesn't go as the raw material that it currently is going to China and other places?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think what you pointed out is cardinal. It's, we have small markets and et cetera, and especially that most of the investment is dictated by outside forces.
Yes.
But also we should realize that these resources are not there to stay for a long time.
Yes.
And also we have a duty to our generation that that we need to also answer for the things that we are doing.
Yeah.
So Zambia's strategy is that we are also looking at economic zones. The development of economic zones in areas where these raw materials are is what is the entry strategy. Okay. And also the fact that we put not really legislation, which is what should I say, deterrent, but that is conducive. It's a win-win situation. Sure. I'll give you an example of the agriculture sector. We are looking at the farm blocks, and that the farmers come in, but also they utilize the existing small-scale farmers within there for outgrower schemes. Okay. You see, that's one way or the other. Sure. It's a model. So we are packaging those in models so that there is direct beneficiation.
Yeah. But are you also not looking at copper? I'll give you an example. Here in South Africa, there's been quite a lot of work that I've heard is being done in terms of looking at the platinum sector, so that beyond shipping it off as a concentrate, the platinum is actually used to make, I think I heard Minister Davis talking about fewer cells, and they're talking about perhaps developing a jewelry industry around the platinum mines. Given that you say Zambia and you say copper, is there not an opportunity to work further on refining copper within Zambia, so we ship the refined product into Zimbabwe, into DRC, into Angola, into Tanzania, into Malawi?
Yeah, you will recall that we have already an industry called Zamefa, which is really a byproduct, or I should say it concentrates on the byproducts of copper. That is copper wire and et cetera, et cetera. Right. Of course, we need more of such countries, and that's where you're driving at. Sure. And that's where our thrust is as well. We're trying to provide more incentives in that area. Okay. And also, government has embarked on what we're calling the industrial cooperation. So basically, to establish that is basically to start now what we call the process of beneficiation, exactly. Yeah. Because what we have realized is that no one will actually do these things if we don't do it ourselves.
Absolutely, and that's where I'm going to take in my next point. An interesting discussion at one of the international meetings I attended was around trying to discriminate between African investors and foreigners in the sense they are non-African. Do you think there is merit in looking at a company like, say, Sasol in South Africa and giving it greater incentives than, say, looking at a company like ExxonMobil from the US?
I think so. Personally, I think so. Because you see, what the primary role I think that we should work towards is regional integration. And South Africa is within our boundaries. I think that within ourselves we need to start demonstrating that we can trade better and quicker and faster and more friendlier than outside. It doesn't make sense, Godfrey, for you to go, leaving your neighbor, and you go and start developing a market outside.
Absolutely.
I don't think so.
And you treat me the same as you would treat a Russian, to give another example.
Yes, exactly. But in terms of trade, I think that we need, as Africans, to start thinking on how to trade easily.
We must talk about what you have done with Zimbabwe, which is interesting, the uni-visa idea. We talked about it the last time we interviewed you. I want you to talk about it again and tell us how is it working well?
Well, I think it's something that is in the process. It's not really fully operational, because it's the discussion under now on how to share the revenues coming from. So you see, but that is I think a good way to start looking at regional integration and the borderless region like Southern Africa itself. Remember, Godfrey, the people that are really hurt in the fact of these non-tariff barriers, etc., are the poorest of the poor, including the women that do the basic border crossing.
You're looking at me, Ambassador. You're looking at me.
Yes.
I'm one of the most hurt by these and amongst the poorest of the poorest. Before I let you go, I must ask you about any misconceptions that people have around Zambia that you'd like to dispel.
Well, I think to say the least, I think there's been also this mushrooming of online publications, you know, which are really causing a lot of harm. I should say that. Yeah, it's the internet. But there's nothing we can do. I mean, it's part of the globalized world. We just have to tap into it ourselves. But I think there's a lot of misinformation that is coming from sometimes within people that really don't understand Zambia, especially in the diaspora. They have never been to Zambia in the last 20 years. And,
do you want to address one of them very quickly?
Well, yes, especially the issues surrounding, you know, the political situation in a country, you know, the presidency and all that. So I think there's a lot of misinformation, and that tends to affect the markets, you know. But I would want to assure everyone that things are under control. We have a president who's working, he's taking a bit of rest, but I think everything is working well. And I just wanted to make people to be responsible in terms of what
how the reports are.
Exactly, and they should be more patriotic.
Okay, but understanding as well the importance of the presidents in the context of Zambia.
Exactly.
Ambassador, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. It's Ambassador Muyeba Chikonde, the High Commissioner of Zambia.